Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Oh, that funky music will rock us till the dawn. Hey, y'all. Happy Sunday. Happy Mother's Day for all of you mothers out there. And welcome aboard. And thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. Thank you for spending part of your Mother's Day with me. Um, Before we get going, I have to give a couple of shout outs. Um, First and foremost, um, I want to do the right thing by saying howdy to my friend Steve out there from Harneal Media. Now, you've heard me and several others sing the praises of what Steve does, how he does it, why he does it, and I just can't sing his praises enough. Um, we're all in this more or less together. And I know a lot of you are starting this as a side hustle. You're doing this as a secondary gig, maybe to make a few extra dollars on the side. And you've got a few things that you want to offer up for sale. Or maybe you do a service, like maybe you're into 3D modeling and you want to sell 3D models. The absolute best way to get your products and services out there to the masses is with the website. And there is only one person I will ever recommend for a website, and that is Steve over at Harneal Media. Now, you've seen me and you've seen a few other people over here in the chat sing his praises, and it's just well deserved. It's well earned. The man is dynamite at what he does. He does it very, very well, very, very professionally, and very, very reasonably priced. You just simply can't go wrong. Um, Sounds almost cliched to say it, but get over to harnealmedia.com. There's a link in the description of every video on this channel, and it's that way for a reason. I say that, and people say, well, what's the reason? I'll tell you the reason. With Steve, you're not going to get excuses. You're going to get performance. If there's a problem, he's on it. If you need changes, he's on it. If there is something you want that you're not getting from another provider, he's on it. He doesn't give excuses. He gives performance. And he's very, very competitively priced. So if you're ready to cut out the middleman like Etsy or eBay or wherever else you're selling your items, and you don't want to pay that commission anymore, you owe it to yourself to get over to Harneal Media. Again, there's a link in the description of every video on this channel for a reason. Hit that contact us button and reach out to Steve. He will take care of you. I'm telling you. That's Harneal Media. Do yourself a favor, get over and chat with Steve. Now, there is somebody else who is not aware that I'm going to do this, but I mean, they'll live with it. The other person I want to give a shout out to, and I don't want to steal her thunder at all, is Ellen. You know her as Madra 3212. I predict big things, big things coming up for her. I'm not going to steal her thunder, but she is gathering everything together to embark on a project that promises to be absolutely huge. Shooting video right now and getting it all together, learning editing software, and starting to get things put together. I don't know all the specifics, but what she's about ready to do is start on the restoration of a antique Wurlitzer jukebox. She makes parts for a jukebox restoration company, and she has teamed up with them. They have provided her with one, I believe, from the 40s. And she's getting everything together and getting ready to get going. And as I say, this promises to be a huge, huge project. So without overhyping, let me just say, get in on the ground floor, get over there to her channel and subscribe. There's nothing there yet. She's still in early days, but this promises to be big. And I know how she is. This is going to be very, very cool. And this is what I mean when I say Steve is on it. there's a link right there. You can just copy and head over to another tab and uh, and get over there and subscribe. Get in on the ground floor because, like I say, this promises to be a killer project. So, those are the shout outs. Today, I kind of forced my own hand. And I'm not ready to make this announcement. I have to make this announcement just simply because it's getting harder and harder, aka impossible, to hide it from you. And I knew going live today, it would be seen in the background. Mark, what's that? What's that? What's that? So I decided, well, discretion being the better part of valor, just go ahead and say it and get it out in the open. I have a new addition to the Avid CNC behind me, and you can already see it right there. Yeah, a tarp would have been just a little bit too obvious. Because I mean, I've had stuff scattered all over this shop for 3-4 weeks now, and it's just getting harder and harder to hide it. So I figured, just go ahead and own up to it and get it out there. I was not able to get a video edited for this week. It's going to come out next week. But here it is. It is a Rotary Axis for the Avid CNC. Now, this thing is a beast. It's an absolute monster. I know this doesn't really translate well to scale. I wish I could zoom that camera in a little bit more, but I really can't. And it's across the room from me. This thing is ginormous. This is the 49-inch Avid CNC Rotary Axis. And if you want to go check it out, there's a link down in the description because I know people are going to be asking exactly what it is. And this thing is a monster, as I said. I checked it out earlier and promptly forgot. But overall, the frame is 49 inches. Plus, there's a mounting hardware back here that's about another 6 inches. So, just the headstock, just the chuck, at here, this is 20 inches from the back of the machine. And I oriented it this way to get the maximum length in between centers here without going absolutely crazy. I could extend it way off the front of the machine. That would be the next size up, but that wouldn't, anything hanging over the front of the machine is not usable. So I decided not to bother with that. Let's just go for the 49-inch frame, and we'll call that good. I also took advantage of mounting the chuck towards the back of the machine, back where a goodly percentage of this mounting is used in the area that's behind the spindle to maximize the length of, usable material I can put between centers. This, of course, has led me to the necessity of removing my old spoil board completely, and I'm getting ready to start building the new spoil board that'll replace it. All in all, what I'm going to be doing with this is mainly at first making replacement parts for a few spinning wheels that my wife has that is needed new legs or new spokes or what have you. And I got to tell you, I'm just as excited as heck about it. I mean, it came with a 4-jaw chuck. It's got the big, I think they're 960 inch ounce NEMA 34 motors. This thing is built like a tank. The tailstock slides on linear rails, these linear guides with bearing blocks. I can use my 3-way touch plate with it. You can't see it from this camera angle, but there is an isolating mount right here. I can bring the spindle over, put a bit in the collet, and it will automatically set my X axis and my Z axis and apply that offset to where it's setting my Z to the center of the rotary and perfectly aligned along the X. I'll get into that in a lot more detail in probably not the next video, but the video after that, after I've got my spoil board mounted and I get to working on my first project. So that's what's been hiding behind sheets of MDF back here and everything else. I got it assembled, put it on this table to get it out of the way, then started mounting it and decided I just can't hide it anymore. So there you go. It's a humongous Rotary Axis that I just can't wait to get into and get started using. So, wonder what we should talk about. So, if anybody has any questions, by all means, go ahead and put them over here in the chat. There's already one question out there. Butch Miller has a comment here. Says, I get any tool I want as long as I promise to make projects my wife desires. There's a lot to that. There is a lot to that. I look at it this way. I barter for food. You know, I make or fix something and take it in and, and it works. So, but yes, there's a lot to that. And you're not the only one there, Butch. That's how he gets new tools too. Absolutely there, Kilroy. Jeff Woodywan says, laser next. Never say never. I mean, I don't know. Right at the moment, I have no plan. I got to learn this first. So right now, no plans, but never say never. I'd love to have a laser on this. I really would. So, yeah, Butch, she wanted a new kitchen. I like to eat. She got a kitchen. Smart man. So if anybody has any questions on it, like I said, feel free. Go ahead and throw them in the chat over here. Kurt Briggle threw up the first question. With the addition to your CNC now, how much flatbed space did you give up? I gave up about 14 inches. The max on this, the max cutting width on this is 49 inches. And the frame is actually about a little more than 13 3/4 inches wide. Now I'm going to space off of the frame. So that's going to give me an actual capacity in X of about 35 1/4 inches. However, I am going to put a piece of T-track over here. This is just sitting here. That's my MDO plywood and a sheet of MDF that I've cut down to rough size. After I get the plywood mounted, this T-track is going to go over here against the frame so that when it's time to surface the spoil board, I have this buffer between the spoil board and the rotary frame so my surfacing bit can get in here and surface this long edge. I'm also going to be spacing my T-track out a little bit further, mainly because I don't need that real tight spacing that I had before. I'm probably going to have one piece of T-track on each edge, again, just for surfacing, and then 3 evenly spaced along the center. I've made it no secret, I don't use a lot of clamps. I very rarely use clamps, as a matter of fact. I tend to use the T-track for holding fixtures, straight edges, quick little, I can use flip down toggle clamps to hold a piece when I'm like doing keyholes, things of that nature. So I use these more for fixturing than I do for clampage. And that's not going to change. I just don't like clamps. So it's going to be a little bit of re-engineering. Yes, I am giving up a little bit of X capacity, but I don't use it. I just don't use that X capacity. So it's just a matter of priorities. If I were doing cabinets or something like that, where I needed to do a lot of sheet goods, then this would not be a good setup. I would probably extend it 2 feet, make the bed 2 feet longer, forcing it out this direction towards me, and put the rotary on the back, recess it down between the frame rails. But if I do that, that shortens up the amount of material that I can get into in between centers. So it's a trade-off. And what is the priority? I don't make any, I have never made anything that wide, not once. So I just don't need that extra capacity. So I'll do it. Let's see here. All right. Let's get over here and look at some of these questions. Sargon says, why didn't you push the headstock all the way to the front? Are the extrusions set in the certain size? Kind of, but basically, let me switch cameras again, and we'll go over, and I think it's this one. Is it that one? It is that one. And I'm going to try here. Let's see if I can zoom in the camera so I can get a little bit better. Will that zoom? Yes, it is zooming. All right. So let's go over here. Nope, wrong way. Let's go over here. And of course, there are some things that you can't see. What you can't see is right off of the back of this rear frame rail right here. Yes, right there is another piece of extrusion that comes back this way to the back of the table frame, and a plate that mounts on the inside of the back of the frame that holds that extrusion. And this is used in part of the alignment process when I aligned this whole frame to the travel of the Y-axis, which was a long drawn out thing. So this has to sit inside the frame rail. I could flip it around, but then that would put this mounting down here, and from the front of the frame come down 20 inches, that would put the jaws of the chuck right here. So that would only give me however much it is between here. I get more capacity this way. Now, as it sits right now, if I look at the front, and yes, I know I can put things inside here. but I'm looking at about a 29-inch piece of material between centers. And I don't have that backed all the way back, so let's back that live center back. About 29 and right at 29.5 inches from the face of this jaw to the tip of the live center. That's more than enough for what I want to do. If I were to go in the X direction and recess it down into the spoil board, down into the frame, not only would the length be shorter, the length I could get between centers, it would also move the front edge of my spoil board back 14 inches, giving me less capacity and Y out here. Now, I still want my full Y capacity. I just don't need the X capacity. So putting it back here where all this mounting, about 7 inches worth of mounting hardware, putting it back behind the center of my spindle where the spindle can't go anyway, seemed to me to be about the best way to go. So I could have swapped it around, but I decided to go with this way so I can get the maximum length. So let's go back over here to this camera. Yeehaw. So I hope that answered that, Sargon. Let's see here. Next question is from Wendell. Do you have it integrated into your control? Yes, it's fully integrated. It's ready to go. I could put a piece of material in here and start cutting right now. It is fully integrated. Just the only thing I'm limited by is the actual software that I'm going to be using to design, and as well as a couple of other limitations. Kind of dovetailing into what Maurice at Erickson Design and Woodworking, more on him a little bit later. He's asking what software will you use to design and produce G-code for the Rotary. I'm going to be using Aspire. And that is something I'll get into a little bit more in future videos. But Aspire does not do true 4-axis design. It does not make true 4-axis designs. It wraps, in this case, the X around the Y. There are some workarounds for that. There are a few things that can be done, but again, more on that down the road. But I will be using Aspire. I looked into Fusion 360, but I could not get past the price. I'm a home hobbyist. I just cannot justify that price annually. Folks want to talk about how expensive Aspire is. You only need to pay that annual subscription 3 years and you have Aspire. You've bought it. So, but yes, it is fully integrated into the control. I mean, it's a little bitty thing. And I apologize if there's any background noise. The CNC is running right now, and I have my AC running because it's hot in here. It's still 77 degrees in here. Fahrenheit, yes. Let me go back over here to this camera. It's a little bitty thing, but what the heck? I can go ahead and home the A-axis now, which basically just does a rotation of the chuck to align the jaws so I can set it up. I just walk over here, home A-axis in Mach 4, click the button, and it's doing its rotation. And there we go. It's homed. So now my chuck jaws are lined up. It knows where it is rotation wise. It has zeroed the A-axis and it's ready to go. I can put a piece of material in there and off we go. So back to this camera. Ba-boom. All right. Let's go back over here real quick. Let's see. Gilroy says, my surfacing bit took a small chunk out of those black locking pins. Had to adjust my size a tad so it doesn't happen again. Mine is mounted along the X-axis in the back of my CNC. Yeah, if I had a little bit more room in this shop, I would, as I said before, extend another 2 feet out the front, and then I would have put the rotary on the back. So, let's see here. Sargon says, maybe I called the wrong piece. I meant the piece that holds the dead center in front of the CNC. It seems from here you have a little more room. Yeah, I do have a little more room. And to be honest with you, Sargon, what I could have done was I could have ordered the next size up on the frame. I got the 49-inch frame. I could have ordered, let's see, the next one I believe is 62 inches. That would have put the tailstock hanging off the front. And I know me, I would just be running into that thing all the time, tearing myself up. So I said, nah, let's keep it, within the frame. So I get what you're saying. Yes, I could have done that. I can't just slide it forward. I couldn't just bring it forward so that part lined up. And that's because of the way the other end of the frame is mounted. It has to go all the way back. So let's see here. Extend the CNC and build a new shed. Yeah, that ain't happening. That ain't happening. Let's see. Let's go back here. Okay, Thomas Grimm is asking, can you elevate the camera view of the rotary? Let's give it a shot. I really honestly don't know. This is a webcam. That I have mounted on the old toolbox that I'm using as a work stand over here. And I can adjust it somewhat. Sorry about this. I know I'm making somebody seasick over here. And that's really about as high as I can go. So I don't know if that helps or not. Let's bring that back up a little bit. And I've got it zoomed in to where you can see the entire thing. It's not straight, and I know that. It looks like, the old, it looks like it's running downhill. It's not. I don't know if that gives you a better view of it or not, but this is more than enough capacity for what I'm doing. As I said, I'm not doing 10-foot, hiking staffs or anything like that. I saw a question. David Vortex 8 was asking, how big of a piece of material can I get in here? With the height this sets up, I have a maximum diameter of 8 inches. And that'll clear my frame cross members by about a 1/2 inch. So I can go with an 8-inch diameter piece. And as I said before, I've got a max length of just a little over, well, not quite 29.5. So again, and I know a piece can go into the chuck quite a bit. So it can be a little bit longer, but I don't anticipate needing anything bigger than that. And if I do, I'll just make it in 2 pieces. So the chuck did come with 2 sets of jaws, inside jaws and outside jaws. So there is that. And again, this thing is a beast. There are no belts on this at all. This mount back here behind the chuck, that's a planetary gearbox. So the motor goes straight into 1 gear inside, and I don't remember what the gear reduction was. I want to say 10-1, but I could be wrong on that. But it is all planetary gears in here. There are no drive belts for gear reduction or ratio reduction or anything like that. So I'm telling you, the thing's a beast. It's built like a tank. So let's see here. Ba-boonk. Let's get back here. Thomas said, "Thank you. Looking at the spoil board is not very educational. Welcome to my world." I've had a piece of MDO board and a piece of MDF sitting up here for 2 weeks. So, the 8 Center says, don't planetary gearboxes have a big wobble problem in them, which can affect accuracy? That comes down to manufacturer. And believe me, Avid CNC is no slouch. They've been doing this a week or two. And if you're talking about thrust, I can grab a hold of that chuck and try to shake it, move it back and forth. Nothing. Excuse me. It doesn't move at all. Would have been great if they would have made the 2 side rails as long as the bed, say another 6 to 8 inches. That is an option. Like I said, that is an option. You can get this, I mean, as long as you want. They are infinitely customizable. That's Avid's way. For instance, they posted on their Instagram a few weeks back that they shipped the biggest machine they have ever built. It is 7 feet wide and 50 feet long. It's infinitely customizable. I could have asked for specific extrusions. I just didn't feel the need. I don't need it. Would have made it possible to do a 36-inch long turning. And if I had the need to do a 36-inch long turning, I would have. I just don't need that. The longest thing I can think of that I'm going to need to cut on this is 24 inches. And that is a post for, without getting technical, it's a post for a distaff for one of Linda's spinning wheels. So I just didn't need it. And, it's kind of like, yeah, I could buy an machine that would, cut an 8x4 sheet of plywood, but I just don't need it. So, and I wouldn't be able to get into the shop. So, Kevin, I don't know if that answered your question. The max work length as it sits right now is about 29 and diameter is about 8. So, and David, I hope that answers yours as well. Let's see here. 8 Centers wanting to know, what projects are you most looking forward to? That's a tough call because I'm looking forward to all of them and I know that's not a lot of help. But I think I have a lot of ideas floating around up here. I tell people I have more ideas than a tail feather on a turkey farm. And while that is true, I'm not quite prepared to reveal them, if that makes any sense. I'm kind of talking with a couple of people behind the scenes to kind of get, I don't know if I would say feasibility studies, but there are certain things that I would like to cut on the rotary just to see if I could do it. I don't have any use for it. I don't have anything really in mind. I don't have a specific project. It's one of those cases of I just want to see if I can do it. And I'll go into those at a later date if they do come to fruition. But I guess right now, what am I most excited about doing is there are 2 spinning wheels, 3 spinning wheels that my wife has that all need little pieces that need to be turned to make them functional. There's one that she got, it's been quite a long time ago. It's called, without getting technical again, it's a baby Baltic spinning wheel. It came over from one of the Baltic states in the either late 1800s or early 1900s. We're not really sure. And it's missing a couple of pieces. And when I say I've been looking forward to this for a long time, when I had the Gatton CNC in the old shed, so we're looking at 2018 maybe, I designed it up and I have the piece ready to cut. I have the design made for it ready to cut. And I've been working with that. So probably getting that wheel up and running would be one of the one I'm looking forward to the most. But again, I never, I don't know. Something, my attention span is squirrel. So something shiny may catch the corner of my eye and I dive on that. But I've got quite a few ideas spinning around up here in this head. And some of them you might think, well, a lathe could do that. Yeah, a lathe could do it real fast. And the same thing with these spinning wheel parts. But I want to do it, you know. Peter S says, you mentioned you could put in an 8-inch stock, but would your ZAxis be able to handle a stock that size? Yes. The ZAxis capacity is 8 inches. But remember, that is sitting on the table and it goes by, my 0 point is the center of the chuck. So it would only be 4 inches above the frame surface, 4 inches below the frame surface. So technically I only need 4 inches of capacity, and the capacity on that is 8 inches. So I've got plenty of Z capacity. So have you ever had to explain to the young people in here what that device is mounted above the light switch? Oh, right there. Yeah. That's like Butch says, that's the manual cedar graphite removal system, MCGRS. Yeah, MCGRS. Jack says if it ain't got a motor on it, no one knows how to use it. Well, for situations like that, I do have, and this is getting way off topic, but that's all right. I do have one that's motorized, Jack, and it works. So, I get some of the weirdest birthday and Christmas presents. Let's see here now. Rick May has a question here. Mark, do you recommend Aspire updated to 12 versus Vcarve 12? Again, Rick, this is going to get back to your priority and what you want to do with it. Vectric probably doesn't like me saying this, but if you don't plan on making your own 3D models and and Vcarve does everything you want it to do, then I have a hard time spending that money to upgrade to Aspire. If you want the ability to import more than one STL file, or you want the ability to make your own models, I'm going to be using that capacity with the Rotary quite a lot because I'm going to have to draw out profiles of some of these turnings and then use a 2-rail sweep to wrap that around my X-axis. So I will be using that a lot, but if you're not, that's one of those 100% your choice kind of things. I do like the update to version 12. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but all software takes a little bit of getting used to. You know, it's not as bad as it used to be. I mean, I can remember when AutoCAD was coming out with a new interface every stinking year, it seems like. And that was a lot to keep up with. That was back in, 2002, 3, 4, something like that. But it doesn't take a lot to get used to it. Yeah, there's a few things, I still get tripped up by the right click versus left click when orbiting around my 3D view, but that's minor. So I would say if you are out to create your own 3D models, or if you have the need for a lot of the advantages of Aspire, then yeah, go ahead and upgrade to Aspire. But if you're not, then you know again, I'll never tell anybody don't do it. I would never tell anybody not to do it. But what I would say is sit down and take a good hard look at a good honest look at what you plan on doing with it. And if the advantages to Aspire outweigh the financial, because that is a big chunk of money, I know it. But if the need outweighs the cost, then yeah. And another thing to look at, these are my favorite words, if you're running a business, even a side hustle, even a backseat business or backyard business, talk to your tax professional, but it's quite possible it's 100% deductible. I know that doesn't make it easier on the wallet, but it could make the difference in paying taxes and getting a refund at the end of the year. So, I mean, you pays your money, you take your chances. But if you need it, by all means, do it. I would never steer anybody away from it. But if you don't need it, it's one of those things that nice to have. But if you're not going to use it, I can see no reason to spend the money. So, let's see. Let me get back here and look at some of these questions here. Let's get here. Chess pieces would be really cool. I will put a link. I agree, they would be. I will put a link to Scott over at M&S Woodworks. He did a very detailed video on cutting chess pieces on a Rotary Axis. And some of the problems that he had. And it all comes back to undercuts and the ability to index. And I'll get into that further in future videos. But what it was, it all came down to that night, the horse. It was just about just about impossible, really, to get that open mouth cut and the inside the ears cut on those horses with some of the models that he got, and because he purchased a bunch of different model sets. Everything but that night was really easy to do. But I will put a link to his video. I just wrote myself a note. I'll put a link to his video in the description as soon as I'm done. And if you're not subscribed already to M&S Woodworks, I highly recommend it. Scott is a great guy. I love his style, and he's extremely talented. And some of his V inlays, ooh, are they killer? So I'm serious about this. Very, very much worth it. So let's see here. Jim Brown asking, what about a safe Z zone? What safe Z? I don't know in what regard. I'm the way this is set up. Let me go back to this other camera here, and we'll go over there. Boom. Yeah, there we are. The way this is set up, and I'm sorry, but you can't see it. There is a Delrin plate screwed down here that I'll take my 3-way touch plate, which I moved over here to make it easier to get to. I'll take my 3-way touch plate and I snap it down in place. And it's an isolator to keep the touch plate from grounding out through the frame. And I'll bring it up, I'll put my piece in, adjust my tailstock, bring my spindle over manually and put it over the touch plate. It'll go down and it'll touch the Z, lift up about 1/8 of an inch, then it'll move over and touch here on the outside edge of this touch plate. You probably can't see it. It'll come down and it'll touch off the Z here, lift up about 1/8 of an inch, then move this direction in X, touch off. Then it knows where the center line of the chuck is, because that was one of the jobs I had to do during alignment and calibration. Was I had to, there's a probe you put in here, there's a probe you put in the collet, you bring it over and you touch it off and it figures out and sets this offset. It doesn't do anything in Y. It's all based on X and Z. So once it knows where the height is, it sets 0 there, and it knows where 0 is here. So I can bring it over here somewhere, tell it to go to 0, and it'll drop down to the middle and be centered. No, I take that back. It won't drop down. It'll just come over here and center along the distance between the chuck and here. My safe Z will still be whatever I set in Vectric. The setting your 0 to the center of the material is akin to, in flat carving, it's akin to setting your Z0 position to the machine, to the table surface. So if I tell it I've got a piece of 1.5 inch stock here, it knows to compensate for that 1.5 inch stock as far as safe Z is concerned. If I have my safe Z set at 1/4 inch above the set my safe Z set at 1/4 inch, it knows to take this center line here and the thickness of my material and add 1/4 inch to that. And the same as it would if you were setting your Z0 to your machine bed and cutting a piece of 3/4 inch material out here. It knows to take that material thickness and add that safe Z height so that it doesn't come over here and run into the material. So I hope that answers that question. As I said, I'll get further into it in future videos. Basically, the main reason I'm talking about this today, well, two reasons. A, it's cool. Come on. And the other reason is because I just can't hide it from you guys no more. It was just, it's just out there. I mean, I had to get it mounted in a line, so it's there. Steve says Andy has a rotary axis on the CNC for precision sharpening. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So let's see here. We have one last question here from Alan Williamson. It says, when previewing a tool path and closing it without resetting the preview, is there a way without going back into the preview, a toolpath previewing, and resetting in version 12? P.S. Nice rotary. Thank you for that. Kind of, Alan. Kind of. Let me bring up Aspire here, and I'll just create a real quick. I'll do 12 by 12 by 3/4 inch, 0.75, single-sided material surface, lower left, no 3D models. Okay. And I'm going to do a circle over here, and I'll do another one down here, and I'll do a star over here. Good enough. Okay, I'm going to do an inside profile on this to cut it out. So that's fine. That's fine. I'll do an inside profile to cut this out and make this go away. I will not be using any tabs just for this demo. And I'll calculate that. And close. And I'll do a pocket on this one. And we'll go down 0.375 just for giggles, using my 1/2 inch bit, and we'll calculate that. All right, close that, and now I'll do my star. I'll do a Vcarve tool path with a 90-degree V bit. Yeah, I'll go ahead and run with all that. Calculate. And so now I have all of these tool paths set up here. Let's uncheck them. And I'll go ahead and I'll run my profile. And we'll get rid of that, and that drills a hole basically. Then I'll preview my pocket. Hello. Let me go back into my pocket toolpath. What happened? Oh, cut depth. Hello. 0.375. I thought I said. Calculate. There we go. Let's preview that. Ba-boom. And let's redo that because I put in no profile pass. I want to put the profile pass in last. There's a good idea, a good example. I forgot to add a profile pass to that tool path. So now what I need to do is I need to go in and add that profile. But I don't want to reset the entire preview. So I can come right over here and I can undo last. And it undoes that last part of the preview. So now I can go into my pocket, and now I can set a profile last, calculate it, and now I can preview that pocket, and it does a nice cleanup. And now I can do the clearance pass, on my star, and then the Vcarve on the star. Now, I can undo the last operation that was done. So I can come up here and click undo last, and all it's going to do is it's going to take off that Vcarve, but it's not taking off the clearance pass. In order for me to go back, if I need to make a change to the depth of this pocket, I would have to reset the entire preview. But if it's just the last step that you did, I can undo that last step. But once you've done that, it's grayed out. I can't undo last again to get back to this one. So let me go ahead and preview that again, just so I have something. And I can close it, and I can come over here into the 2D view. Let's go over here and we'll draw a rectangle. And we'll close that. Now I want to do a profile on the line with the V-bit. I'll do a cut depth of 0.0625 with a 90-degree V-bit. And I want to go on, select. I want to go on the vector. And we'll calculate that. And that's going to put us into the preview screen. If I go over here to undo last, it's still going to reset that. So you can go in and out of the preview. You can go create new toolpaths. If you click that undo last, it will only do the last step that you did. So if I need to come in and resize this star, I will have to reset the entire preview, resize my star, recalculate the toolpath. Then I can preview all. From here, because I did preview all, if I undo last, it does everything. It does everything because I did it all in one step. Now, if I do the profile and the pocket, preview visible, then I come along and I do the Vcarve, preview the visible. Now, if I decide I need to change the size of my star, for example, I can undo last, and both of those toolpaths were, I undid that carve. So it's kind of a balancing act between these buttons, how you preview it. If you're previewing the toolpaths one at a time, if you're previewing them all, or if you're putting check marks. And remember, this is preview visible. If it's highlighted down here and the text is in bold, that's selected. If it's check marked, that's visible. Okay? So I've got this one selected. I can select. I've got this one check marked, but this one is selected. Preview visible, it's going to do that one. This is selected. That is visible. So reset my preview on all of that, close it, and I hope that answered that question. Let me see here. Did that answer that question? I hope it did. RB, long time no see, RB. You got a really good start on the Santa Claus look. Yeah, yeah. I'm going for redneck Santa. You know, and his Leroy the red-nosed reindeer. Yeah. Oh, is that what it was, Dwayne? Thank you. Good eye. I do that all the time. You know, I keep telling myself I got to stop. I just highlight the whole thing and do everything. So, okay, if you close the toolpath without resetting. Oh, okay. Well, let's bring it back up here. If I close the toolpath without resetting, let's go over here and let's do, I'll do the profile first. I'll do the profile first. Blink. And then I'll do the pocket second. Okay. And I'll close the preview. And I'll go back over from the toolpath tab, go into my 2D view. And let's see, I'll add another polygon out here, 3-sided. Let's make a triangle right about there. Close it, and I'll drag it down to about like so. Let's make it a little bit wider here. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so toolpath tab is closed. I'm over here in the design tab. Go back over this way. I've still got my toolpaths all set up here. I'm going to calculate a new, let's Vcarve this. And we'll go with a flat depth of 1/4. And I'm not going to add 2 decimals again. And we'll calculate that toolpath. And that puts me over here into the preview. And I can still undo the last thing I did. And that was that pocket. So yes, as long as that button is not grayed out like you see it now, you can still use it, but it will only undo the last toolpath you ran. Okay. So in order to get rid of this and start over, I can't undo last. I will have to reset the preview. So the only time that undo last won't work is if you save the file, close Aspire, Vcarve, whichever, and go away, come back later on, load that file again. There's no final toolpath in the memory. Your previews are probably not even going to be there because it didn't save those previews. So you'll be starting from scratch. And I get it. There's a lot of times where that's a major pain in that you've got a pretty intricate 3D carve that you have previewed, and you've got to go back 3 steps, 3 different toolpaths that you either made a mistake or something like that, or just need to resize or change text or what have you. Yes, I'm afraid you do have to go back and reset the entire preview. But what I normally do is that's about the time it's time for a bathroom break or a beverage break or something like that. Go grab a coffee and let it run. So, Tom Miller is wanting to know, is the tailstock live center removable so that you can use other number 2 Morse taper tailstock attachments such as drill chucks? Yes, it is. And in fact, it's real easy to take out. Let me switch over to the other camera. I can see right now I'm probably going to end up having to upgrade my StreamYard account. Now, I don't know, so I can have more than one camera going at once without having to switch it like that. I don't know if you can see that or not. Well, kind of, sort of. But all I need to do is back that live center in and crank it one more time and pull it right out. And it is, like, as you say, a number 2 Morse taper. So yes, I could use anything else with that taper. And I'm all set, ready to go. So, and that's one of the things that worries me about this. And that is, it's kind of sort of like buying a lathe in that the lathe is expensive. But the accessories are even more expensive because you pay $500 for a lathe, $1,000 for a lathe. Great. Now you can spin stuff. Now you got to buy all the tools to cut with. You got to buy the chuck. You got to buy the tailstock or the live center, or because most lathes that I've seen anyway come with drive spurs. So, that's what worries me about this is that I'm going to get so far so deep down the rabbit hole here. It's real easy for me to buy stuff I won't use. But the drill center, the drill chuck, that's something that I'm kind of like, but I don't know yet. Let's see. 5280 woodworking. Did they remove the repeat last command with spacebar? Yes, they did. And they did not anticipate I hesitate to, well, they did not hesitate the reaction that they got for that. The reason they did it was because it was clashing with some of the, oops, wrong one. You're welcome, Alan. It was clashing with some of the vector management in the 3D view. The space bar, using the space bar to open up the last command, like say, I drew a triangle. So in the older versions, 11.5 and earlier, you could hit the space bar and it would open that polygon tool again. Or if I was freehand drawing and I freehand drew and then I clicked out of it and did a little bit of node editing on what I had just freehanded, come out of node editing, I could just hit the space bar and it would go back into that tool. That was clashing with some of the vector commands in the 3D view, so they deactivated that. They did not anticipate the reaction they got. They thought that was one of those obscure little things that nobody really knew anything about. Well, it turns out it was a heck of a lot. It was a heck of a lot. It was used a lot more than they thought it was. And they got a lot of pushback on it. So it's possible that it'll be coming back. Don't quote me on that. They did have some technical issues, which was number one, why they took it out in the first place. They didn't think that it was going to be missed. The other one they got a lot of pushback on was up here in file operations. You'll see there's no icon to start a new project. There's no undo and redo icons. And there was no save icon. That made a lot more people mad than they had anticipated. They were trying to save space because look at how full that is already. Well, come to find out that people wanted that back. So now if you want those back, the undo, redo buttons, save, start a new project. Now, if you want that back, you'll have to go to edit, come down to options, then come down here to general settings and show additional file operations is right here. You click over here, that's a drop down menu. Click on that and change that to yes. Then when you close it, those icons come up right here. So I don't use these myself. I use keyboard shortcuts, but a lot of people don't. So they gave you the option, but I'm going to go in and turn them back off because I don't use them. So show additional file operations. No. Okay, and they're gone. And it's gone. So, you were going batty today. No, it's not you. It's not you. So, let's see. Alan Williams says, could you turn aluminum? Yes, but again, this is not for machining. This is a CNC router primarily for wood, plastics, acrylic, things like that. It's not a mill, never will be a mill. I'll give you an example. When mounting it and aligning it to be parallel with the y-axis, the tolerance is 5/1000ths of an inch. If you can get, mine runs in the Y. So when you get the frame aligned with your y-axis within 5/1000ths of an inch, it's considered good enough. That's within tolerance. Lay it down here. Elevation wise, the headstock higher or lower within 5/1000ths of an inch, that's considered good enough. It is good enough for woodworking. 5/1000ths of an inch over a length of, what did we say, 29 inches? There are very few lathe operators that can get that kind of tolerance. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that, 5/1000ths, it's pretty ding dong good for woodworking. That's way out of spec for most machining. Most, if you're turning metals or what have you, making fasteners for the sake of argument, that's way too much slop. That's not accurate enough. I'm a woodworker. I don't do metal. I may do one or two aluminum projects soon, but we'll see what happens. So, let's see here. 8th Center says, I do think Vectric should expand the hotkeys and make all of them customizable to 2 or 3 presses with control or shift held. Again, that kind of suggestion, contact Vectric support. That's where they get their ideas from. They will listen to you. And if there's enough demand, they'll see if they can incorporate it. Depends on the infrastructure and on what they would need to add. But those kind of ideas, they want to know. So send them a message. The problem that you're going to run into with something like that is, if you can, say, hold down Control and Alt and use another keyboard, another key to do something, is that going to clash with something else that already uses that? So, I mean, if you go over to the help and then you come down here to keyboard shortcuts, it'll open up in a browser page, and I'll drag it over here. There are the keyboard shortcuts. Look at the number of keyboard shortcuts that they are. Now, I know you're saying you would like to be able to customize them. But for instance, hitting Control H will create a mirrored copy of a vector horizontally. Is there something that Control Shift H does? Yes. Control Shift H creates a mirrored copy horizontally around the center of the material. How about Control Alt H? I don't know. We'd have to look. Control Alt Shift H. Pretty soon you're going to run out of fingers to be hitting keys. But this list is a long one. And going into what all of these do and what is open, what's still available, that's a pretty daunting task. So this may be a case of they're not giving you that ability to save themselves, you know? Remember, Vectric is not a huge company, so they don't have an entire call center full of people answering the phones. So if I create a keyboard shortcut, if I customize a keyboard shortcut using Control Shift U, I didn't know that there was already being used. Now I'm going to call them up and say, hey, I did this. How do I undo it? That's on me. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that I agree with that decision, and I'm not saying that's the reason they don't let you do that, but it's got to be part of it. So, let's see. Dwayne says your height difference of 5 thousandths makes 10 thousandths on the diameter. Yes. Side to side different only makes the quality of the tool path go down. Yes. But again, that's what they consider to be within tolerance. 5 thousandths. I got closer than that, but again, we're talking about woodworking. I'm probably going to sand more than 5 thousandths off of something. And just, the quality of the tool path, I get what you're saying. But again, I'm not a machinist. I'm not trying to machine parts. I'm looking at making a spindle, a spoke for a spinning wheel that was made in the 1800s when there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of standardization. So it is what it is. And that's what they ended up with. They didn't plan on making this spoke this diameter. They just went for what they had. Because a lot of these wheels, a lot of what I'm working on was not mass produced. They were one wheel maker made over his lifetime, maybe 20 wheels. So we're not talking about anything that I need that level of precision with. And if I do, I can always go back and adjust it a little bit more. I mean, I just set up a dial indicator along the back end, and you'll see this in next week's video. I set up a dial indicator along the back end. You use the touch plate to measure where it's at. It moves down to the other end, move the touch plate, measure where it's at, and it'll tell you if the headstock needs to move over and in which direction, or if it needs to go up or come down. And I got it within that 5 thousandths tolerance. And it took me a while to do it because moving something 5 thousandths of an inch, you don't think about it, but you can move something 3 thou just tightening up a bolt. So you loosen it up, you kind of nudge it over a little bit, you tighten it down, and you've gone too far. Then you do it all again, nudge it back over a little bit, tighten it down, and you haven't moved it at all. So you can chase your tail, and I did a lot of tail chasing, believe me. You can chase your tail trying to get it dialed in. And eventually we all get to the point to where good enough. It's within that 5 thou, good enough. I'm not touching it. So so does your rotary allow you to do steps? Say you want to machine 5 flat areas around the material. The rotary does the software, does the design software. Again, Vectric is not true for axis machining. It wraps the Y around wraps the X around the spindle. Around it wraps the X moves around the A axis. That's what I was trying to say, not spindle. So there is a way around that, but there's a couple ways around it. So let's see here. Wood will move that much just in humidity changes. Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, it will apply glue. Just the moisture in the glue will swell up a piece. That's why You know. Yes, you're right. X2A. It gets real confusing when I try to talk live. That's the thing about edited videos. You don't see my mistakes because they're edited. So how do I put a save button on my design window? Again, let me close that. The save button, you go up to edit, come down to options, and go down to general settings, additional file, show additional file operations. Click that to yes. Boom. And then when you exit that, there's your save button. There's also undo, redo, and create a new empty file. So that's, edit, options, scroll down to general settings, show additional file operations. And these over here, they're drop down menus or they can be edited. There's like file list, recent file list. When I first started up, I've got a list of files over here. It says 4. I want 10. So now when I open up Aspire, the last 10 files I did will be listed over here. Okay. So let's see here. I think that's about it. Jay Scotia says, yes, I do that with Aspire. Yes, you can do it. And that is indexing. You can do it. You kind of have to know what you're doing, but you can do it. So, without getting super technical, like I said, that this will come in other videos. But one of the fun things about a rotary axis is I was asked this years ago when I set up my first rotary axis on the Gatton CNC. There are advantages, there are pros, and there are cons. All right. There are pros to a rotary axis and there are cons to a rotary axis. Inside cuts are extremely difficult. Like I would not be able to hollow out a vessel on the rotary axis. I might, if I play my cards right, I might be able to say cut a concave with the right type of bit, but I won't be able to say hollow out a vase. So right now I'm going to be using it for cutting spindles, or I'm going to be using it to cut spokes or legs. But there are other things that you can do with it as well. And somebody asked me years ago, well, what's the difference between that and getting a lathe? I said, well, on the surface, we can both take a square piece of stock, a rectangular piece of stock, chuck it up, and we can make it round. The difference between a lathe and a rotary axis is if I decide to do it, I can make it square again. So that's the main difference between a lathe and a rotary axis on outside cuts. Other was we're not just turning round things. If you go to Vectric's YouTube channel, you'll see they have done a lot of videos, a lot of tutorials on making sculptures on a rotary axis. Maurice of Erickson Woodworking Design was talking about, or Design of Woodworking, excuse me, was talking about chess pieces. A lot of that can be done on a lathe, but when you get to that night, you're not going to turn that horse's head on a lathe. So it's more than just round objects. It's also more than just rectangular objects. But again, we'll get into that in videos in the future. So Okay, here we go. Alan's asking, if you turn a spindle, but then you need a flat spot, will the CNC do it without taking it out of the rotary? It can. The rotary is more than capable of doing it. The design software you use, that's going to decide. And that's what I mean by true 4-axis machining. Vectric doesn't do true 4-axis machining, but there are workarounds. And again, in future videos, because it takes a little bit of modification. So, all right. Let's see. I think I'm going to go ahead and end this. We're an hour and a half already. Oh my gosh. It's Mother's Day. You guys got things you got to do. I get to go over to my sister-in-law's house where we're having a big Mother's Day to do over there with the whole family. And I don't have to cook. We get to chill. We just get to show up and eat. I kind of like that kind of arrangement. And I know you probably do too. So I hope I got to everybody's question. Let's see. Next week, like I said, this was a preemptive strike. I didn't want to come out with it this weekend. Next weekend, I'll have the assembly and alignment video for this. I'll get into the specs and what it can and can't do a lot more in depth. Not a forensic type of a study, but we'll go over the highlights. I just didn't have all the footage shot in time to get it edited and posted this weekend. So next weekend, that'll be the video. Channel members, we got a special guest tomorrow. I believe he's still here. Let me go check that out and make sure. Yes. Maurice from Erickson Design and Woodworking will be our special guest tomorrow. We're going to talk about the creative process, the design process, and a whole bunch of other things. So, number one, if you're not subscribed to Maurice over at Erickson Design and Woodworking, shame on you. Get over there and do it now. Trust me, the guy's got some awesome stuff over there. Trust me on this. And we're going to discuss a lot of it. So get over there and subscribe and join us tomorrow evening on the members only live stream, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. For if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you'd like a little bit more information on how to become a channel member, get down there and click that little like button. Well, click the like button too, but click the join button, and a panel will pop up and a video will play that'll tell you all about channel membership. Clicking that join button does not make you join anything, doesn't obligate you to anything. It just plays a video that tells you all about it. So, tomorrow, Maurice. Next week, more on the Rotary Axis. Yeah, I sent you an email, by the way. That's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you for spending part of your Mother's Day here. Go take care of Mama, or she's going to take care of you, especially on Mother's Day. Some things I still shudder to think about. Anyway, thank you very much. Y'all have a great rest of your day and see you next week.